New updates in the Sean Diddy Combs legal saga. The rap mogul gets an official sentencing date. He gets hit with allegations from a shocking new lawsuit. A juror speaks out. And also, apparently, Diddy receives a standing ovation from inmates.
Diddy loses
in court as judge announces his shocking prison sentence after explosive trial verdict. The courtroom was electric with tension. You could hear a pin drop. All eyes were fixed on the judge. Verdict
In the Sean Diddy Combs trial, but I'll tell you what, this case, not over. No. Important hearing today, sort of. We got to talk about why. Well, Judge Arun Subramanian had sent a tentative October 3rd sentencing date for Diddy on his convictions of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Remember, that's what he was convicted of. He was acquitted of racketeering conspiracy, and he was acquitted of the 2 sex trafficking counts. But he was convicted of these prostitution charges. And at one point, there was reporting that defense counsel for Sean Combs and prosecutors, they had then agreed to switch the date to September 22nd. And we thought, okay, because today's hearing was supposed to be about expediting the October hearing. Then they agreed to September 22nd. Now apparently it's back to October 3rd. This is all over the place. Very confusing. We'll get it straightened out. I gotta say it's interesting because Combs' defense counsel had originally stated last week, when it was the October 3rd date, that they wanted that sentencing expedited, meaning they wanted it to happen sooner. And one of the things that Sean Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilo, had said was, quote, the mother of some of his children had passed away many years ago. These kids, the 2 daughters here sitting in the middle of Your Honor's second row, don't have a parent. Obviously referring to the death of Kim Porter in 2018, mother of Christian, Jesse, Delilah, Quincy. And by the way, remember Sean Combs was denied bail, so it wasn't even like he got to go home after the verdict. But clearly they wanted this expedited. They want his sentencing to happen as quickly as possible. They want him out of jail. They want him out of prison as soon as possible. And also it's interesting because prosecutors, they need time for the pre-sentencing investigation and report. Basically, that's when a probation officer interviews the defendant, looks at the history, the background, childhood, education, employment, criminal history, finances, the mental and physical health of the defendant. There are interviews that are conducted with family and friends. The officer looks at various court and school records, employment records, financial records. The officer could speak to the victims in the case, law enforcement that were involved in the investigation, provide all of this information in a report to the judge, because here the judge is going to have a lot of discretion when it comes to the sentence. What could a sentence look like? Well, prosecutors indicated in a filing that before even doing a pre-sentencing investigation, Combs is looking at 51 to 63 months, a little over 4 to 5 years in prison. The defense seems to be pushing for 21 to 27 months, so a little over 1.5 to 2 years. But remember, Combs has been sitting in federal lockup since September at the MDC, so if he gets time served, he really wouldn't be spending that much time behind bars. Now, of course, they're the extremes. When you talk about transportation to engage in prostitution, the maximum for each count is 10 years in prison. You stack them together, you get 20 years. Okay, based upon the facts in this case, it seems highly unlikely he would get that much. Other side, you get the idea. There's no minimum for this charge. So could he get time served and walk free? Also seems unlikely, in that you're dealing with multiple instances of transporting Jane and Cassie, the 2 victims in this case, and men across state lines for the purposes of sex work. You could say this is an aggravating factor why I don't think he's just going to get time served.
The man who now held Diddy's future in his hands. After weeks of scandal, bombshell testimony, and the most talked about trial in the entertainment world, the moment had come. And when the gavel came down, it was like a shot heard around the world. Diddy was sentenced to prison real time. And in that moment, the music mogul, the businessman, the icon completely lost it. This wasn't the confident, cocky Diddy the world had grown used to. This wasn't the man who once ruled the charts, filled arenas, and threw legendary parties. This was a man crumbling under the weight of justice. The verdict had already shaken him, but the sentence, that was a dagger, according to eyewitnesses inside the courtroom. Diddy's face dropped as soon as the judge began speaking. His lawyers had hoped for a miracle, probation, home arrest, maybe even a suspended sentence. But the judge had a different plan, and it didn't include leniency. This court cannot and will not, maybe even a suspended sentence. But the judge had a different plan, and it did include leniency. This court cannot and will not ignore the pattern of behavior presented. The judge stated firmly, this isn't about one night. This isn't about one mistake.
Saying, Jesse, wait a second, he was denied bail at every turn. And you would be right, he was. Despite proposing extensive bail conditions during the course of this legal saga, including a $50 million bail package and monitoring by private security personnel, the court was not convinced. Now, by law, the defense has the burden to prove that Combs is not a flight risk or danger to the community. And given the charges, the allegations, including that he was improperly trying to contact people in the case pre-trial, he was always denied release. But then there's what happened after the verdict last week. And this is an interesting conversation. And again, we're going to be speaking with Ira Judelson in a minute, who's been working with Diddy's team on possibly getting him released. But after the verdict, the defense applied for Combs to be released from detention pending sentencing. But that request was again denied by Judge Arun Subramanian. The defense argued, look, he's no longer charged with RICO. There's no longer presumption of detention. We have his passport. There's no access to private planes. There's no criminal history. This is his first conviction. He would be a fool to mess any of this up because he was just given his life back by the jury. He wasn't convicted of the highest charges. He was facing up to life in prison. Now he's not. He should be allowed to return to his property, his mansion in Florida. There'll be a $1 million bond. Now, the government argued, look, Sean Combs, he was convicted of serious charges, Mann Act violations. There was physical abuse in this case. There was prolific use and distribution of drugs. He committed crimes while under investigation, including having drugs in his hotel room when he planned to surrender to federal authorities back in September of 2024. And Judge Arun Subramanian denied the bail application, sided with the government, that these convictions on these charges, by law, they trigger the mandatory detention statute, that the defense conceded Combs is violent. They conceded that at trial. Quote, we own the domestic violence. That's what the defense had said. The judge also made the point that it was impossible for the defense to demonstrate that he poses no danger, particularly given his violence after the searches of his properties and when he knew he was under investigation. That's the whole Violent Jane episode, attacking Jane, one of the victims in this case. And also that the evidence at trial showed there was a years-long pattern of abuse and violence. But despite the judge denying Combs' release once again, and given that his sentencing has officially been confirmed for October 3rd, that was agreed by both the defense and the prosecution yesterday, could he get out beforehand? It's an interesting question. Let me bring in right now a special guest. I am joined by one of the most renowned bail bondsmen, probably in the country, definitely in New York, Ira Judelson. Ira, thank you so much for coming here on Sidebar, and pleasure to meet you.
You too, Jess. Pleasure myself.
Let's talk a little bit about what you do. Talk about what you do. I don't know if everybody completely understands the process and your role in it.
You know, it's funny. Not a lot of people understand the world of bail. They think that a bondsman just raises his hand and you know, that's where it ends. With me, it starts with the people that you meet, the lawyers, the judges, the DAs, hearing about a bail, putting it together, which could take days, weeks, as in this case that we're talking about right now, Puffy. I started on this case going back almost 7 months ago when they brought me in as a consultant, because federal bail and state bail are two different things. State bail was most of the bails that I write. Federal bail, they don't need a bondsman. They do go through pretrial services, but a lot of times major attorneys will bring me in to consult because they'll be denied and they'll say, hey, what do we do? So in this case with Puffy, I got brought in and we talked about possibly renting out his plane and keeping it in Honolulu. We talked about surrendering his...
The misconduct, years of silence bought with fear and money, and a blatant disregard for accountability. And then it happened. The sentence was read out loud. Over a decade behind bars. The room gasped. Diddy buried his face in his hands. His legal team sat in stunned silence. His family present in the courtroom was visibly emotional, but it was Diddy's reaction that caught everyone's attention. He stood up visibly trembling, and then collapsed back into his seat, overwhelmed. The once untouchable mogul had finally hit a wall he couldn't buy his way through. Outside the courthouse, media scrambled for statements. Protesters gathered, supporters wept, detractors cheered, and the industry it stood still. 50 Cent, who's been on Diddy's neck since the beginning, wasted no time. He posted almost immediately. The empire's down, and this is only the beginning. The post was liked, shared, and commented on by thousands within minutes. 50's words echoed a truth many had begun to expound, and this is only the beginning. The post was liked, shared, and commented on by thousands within minutes. 50's words echoed a truth many had begun to accept. This trial wasn't just about Diddy. It was about an entire culture that had turned a blind eye for far too long.
Denied at the very beginning of the case, one after another after another. This judge, and it's the same judge who's going to sentence him, denied that over and over again. And you and I, again, in another conversation we had on your show, we both said he is screwed now, that he's got no chance because he's violating the rules of the court while in jail. So if he's disobeying the rules of the jail and the directive of the court while he's in custody, how can he be expected to actually follow the terms of a bail agreement when he's out of custody?
Right.
And I think that chicken is coming home to roost again. I mean, I think that's what happened yesterday afternoon. That any judge who has a criminal defendant who behaves like that is an affront to the court itself. It's disrespectful to the court. And it's almost like he couldn't get out of his own way there at the beginning. But he had an excellent defense team.
He does. So assuming for a moment, whenever the sentencing hearing happens, right? Let's say it happens in a month from now. Let's say it has October 3rd. The question is, what's his sentence? As we mentioned, the prosecution in a filing from yesterday talked about the guidelines range being 51 to 63 months. Now, this is before a pre-sentencing investigation and report. Now, the defense, right, they want 21 months. He's already served almost 10. Talk to us about what you're thinking here, because there is no minimum. The maximum's 10. If the judge were to combine it together, like you said, 20 years, feels highly unlikely that would happen. As we're taught, what is a pre-sentencing report investigation? How would it affect this? What do you think the judge is going to do? There's so many different factors to consider here. And it's not like a murder case when it's like, okay, we know what's going to happen. It's like life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's a given. There's room here. What do you think the judge is going to do?
So in federal court, this is actually very interesting. They rely very heavily on those pre-sentencing investigations. So essentially what will happen is there'll be a federal probation officer, and they do these for almost every case, where they will do their own investigation, where they'll talk to family members, they'll talk to employers, they'll talk to neighbors, and they will make a recommendation to the court as to suitability for release, suitability for time. And that's something that federal judges traditionally really adhere to. They tend to put a lot of weight on those, far more than they do in state court. The probation department can make a recommendation, but the DA will certainly have more ability, most of the time, to talk a judge in or out of a sentencing recommendation from the probation department. Federal court is different. They really put a lot of weight on those. So that's something that I think is going to be very interesting. And a lot of that will come down to what the individuals involved in that investigation, even though it shouldn't impact their professional recommendation. It's really, I think we're going to see what they thought of the case. You know, did they think he got away with something horrific here? Did they think that he was getting railroaded from the beginning? I think that may reflect in the recommendation to the court. But of course, we don't know what that is yet. I don't know. If I'm his defense lawyer, I don't know if I am pressing the gas on that, trying to make this thing go faster. I mean, it's coming up soon enough anyway. I would want to give them the time and not press them, because you don't want a probation officer or anybody in the federal system to feel like they're being rushed.
Right.
Because I think it's very easy to just go, okay,
Yeah.
Screw it, the guy should stay in.
The prosecution made the point yesterday. They said the point, like, we're not ready to give a really sentencing recommendation. We haven't gotten the report. You know, there's people say, well, maybe he'll get time served, right? You know, he's been locked up. There's other people say, no, the judge is going to throw the book at him. Even though the judge said yesterday, even though I'm denying him bail and I'm looking at certain conditions, this is not reflective or a preview of what my sentencing recommendation or what my sentence will be. But, you know, are we looking at double digits? Are we looking, you think, at 1 to 5 years, time served? I know it's so impossible to ask, but it is a very specific charges he was convicted of.
Yeah, we're not looking at double digits.
Okay.
I cannot imagine the court imposing that. And remember, because this law is so old, and we're in an age of Ubers,
As more details emerge from behind the scenes, the picture painted is damning. The prosecution had built a case not just on accusations, but on a lifestyle built on power, privilege, and the silencing of voices. And the judge made it clear that lifestyle had an expiration date. Diddy's defense argued hard. They talked about philanthropy, his business achievements, his role in uplifting black culture, and opening doors for countless artists. But none of it was enough because the allegations and the evidence overshadowed it all. And the court wasn't swayed. This verdict and sentencing have sent a message across Hollywood, the music industry, and beyond. You may be rich, you may be famous, you may have powerful friends, but when it comes down to it, the truth, when it finally breaks through, will tear everything down. As Diddy was escorted out of the courtroom in handcuffs, cameras caught a glimpse of the man once seen as untouchable. No sunglasses, no entourage, just a broken man walking toward a very different future. Behind him, the walls of his empire are collapsing. Brands are pulling out. Business partners are distancing themselves. His music, once a staple of every party and playlist, is being quietly removed from rotations. The silence is louder than the hits ever were. Inside sources say several artists are reevaluating their associations with Diddy's labels and legacy projects. Some are even exploring legal avenues to detach their names from his brand altogether. And as the walls keep crumbling, the ripple effects keep growing. This trial, this verdict, and now this sentence, they've opened the floodgates. More allegations are surfacing. More lawsuits are on the way, and more names are being whispered. Diddy's story may be taking center stage now, but make no mistake, this is far from over. The culture is shifting. The silence is being shattered. And the justice system, long criticized for protecting the powerful, has finally shown its teeth. The sentencing wasn't just about punishment. It was about making a statement. And that statement is loud and clear. No one is above the law. As Diddy prepares for the next chapter, not in a mansion or recording studio, but behind bars, the industry he helped build is being forced to confront its own reflection. How many more secrets are waiting to surface? How many more powerful names are involved? And how long until the next domino falls? One thing's for sure, the era of unchecked power is ending. And this verdict, this sentence, is the shot that started the revolution. So buckle up because the truth is out and it's not going away. Stay tuned because the fallout is just beginning. And it didn't stop there. As soon as the cameras went off, new reports began surfacing from those who had worked within Diddy's inner circle. Former assistants, managers, even close collaborators began leaking anonymous statements to major outlets. They spoke of a culture of fear, a pattern of manipulation, and a deeply rooted network of loyalty and silence that had kept the truth hidden for so long. Some even claimed they were forced to sign NDAs so airtight they feared speaking even now. But with Diddy now convicted and sentenced, that fear is starting to erode. And with it comes the revelations. More lawsuits are already being drafted. Investigative journalists are deep diving into Diddy's past deals, partnerships, and parties. And what they're finding, it's not pretty. One shocking detail that emerged post-verdict was the extent of Diddy's surveillance network. According to sources, many of his luxury properties were outfitted with hidden cameras and advanced recording equipment. Not just for security, but allegedly to gather leverage. Guest EAs so airtight they feared speaking even now. But with Diddy now convicted and sentenced, that fear is starting to erode. And with it comes the revelations. More lawsuits are already being drafted. Investigative journalists are deep diving into Diddy's past deals, partnerships, and parties. And what they're finding, it's not pretty. One shocking detail that emerged post-verdict was the extent of Diddy's surveillance network. According to sources, many of his luxury properties were outfitted with hidden cameras and advanced recording equipment. Not just for security, but allegedly to gather leverage. Guests, associates, and even romantic partners were reportedly recorded without their knowledge. If true, that opens a new layer of legal liability that goes far beyond what was covered in this initial trial. It also paints a picture of a man who wasn't just reckless. He was strategic, calculated, always a step ahead. Until now, with the sentence handed down and new investigations emerging daily. The pressure is mounting. Diddy's legal team is bracing for additional charges. Federal agencies are reportedly coordinating with local law enforcement to review the evidence presented in the initial trial for potential violations on a broader scale. Meanwhile, inside prison, Diddy's new reality is starting to set in. Gone are the private jets, the sprawling estates, and the adoring fans. In their place, steel bars, concrete walls, and stripped-down routines. Sources close to the situation say Diddy is struggling emotionally, mentally, physically. He's not adjusting well to life behind bars. And why would he? The empire he spent decades building has crumbled overnight. He went from billionaire mogul to inmate number in the blink of an eye. And the public, they're watching every step. Social media is ablaze with commentary. Some fans are mourning, others are enraged, and some are celebrating what they see as long overdue justice. But through all of it, one theme continues to rise above the noise: accountability. People are demanding it, expecting it, and now, finally, they're starting to see it. It's not just about Diddy anymore. It's about every powerful figure who believed they were untouchable. Every industry veteran who thought connections and cash could hide the truth forever. The rules have changed. And as the music world, Hollywood, and beyond brace for what's next, one thing remains certain. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a massive cultural shift. More names will fall, more stories will surface, and more victims will finally get the chance to be heard. This is the new era, and no amount of fame can stop it. Diddy's sentence was just the start. The real reckoning is here.